Ronnie, I got a question real quick.
Yeah.
If we not going to have a quorum, we're going to go ahead and go over some of these things, not going to take any action. So I'm not going to I won't call the meeting to order.
Right.
Since we don't have a quorum. But I guess that was really my question, is whether or not we can just continue on with the meeting. And as long as we don't take any action, then there's nothing really, no violation here.
Man, you got to have a quorum to have a meeting, but you got to have a quorum to take action for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know what you do. I don't know what you do when you don't have a quorum, as far as just, it's all, I guess, two members could always have a meeting with each other, that's not even really a violation of the records.
Right. Well, so what I'm concerned about, since we don't have a quorum, since we've got two of the members have, chosen not to show up today, or one has chosen not to and the other one is ill, then, I guess some of these items on the agenda, like these forbearance that we've been renewing every month, those just go away then, don't they?
Well, I saw Billy Ray's comments. I think now that the governor's put some of that in his thing, I know there's a question whether TVA wants you to follow the governor or not. But one of those orders I know talked about forbearance, not just electric companies, a lot of companies.
There's nothing on the agenda that requires a vote tonight.
Yeah, it looked like all basic stuff, kind of what y'all had, talked to Mr. Trigg and them about. A tag? It's not, the meeting's not on, is it on the public right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's 6:01. So start at 6 o'clock. We don't have a quorum. So I guess what we need to go ahead and do, we're not going to be calling the meeting to order, and we won't be taking any action on any agenda items. However, I think we still need to go over a few things that are on this that are on the agenda. Very few of them require board approval. So let's just go ahead and go through the narrative and go through the agenda. And let's just talk about a few of these items real quick. So the first thing, number 3 on the agenda is to discuss the EPB COVID-19 response and results. And Ronnie, that's really what I was asking you about just a minute ago. I guess we'll need to go back and review the minutes from the last meeting, determine whether or not we have to take action to continue with the forbearance, or whether we have to, start collecting on those overdue payments. So, I'm gonna have to lean on you, Ronnie, to give me some advice on that, whether or not it's whether or not we need to go ahead and review that or and bring it up again for another meeting, or whether those go away today.
Yeah, I think with the orders that's in place from one of the governor's orders, and I had all of them, I think, when I moved offices to try to make it look not so messy in here. I forgot to bring that stack in here. I can go get it. But Billy Ray referenced it in his information that he sent out about the TVA as well. TVA talking about the forbearance, as well as then the governor's orders that included in one of his orders the forbearance for various utility companies, which I think would be included. EPB would be included in that. So I think currently there is I haven't seen, when I went through, there's a good site to look at all the orders, a summary of those orders, and then you pick, I tried to copy the ones that seemed to have any relevance to us. And that I saw that one for sure that talked about the forbearance. So I don't think that's been modified any. I don't think, Billy Ray, I don't think I've seen any orders come down that would take that off the table.
No, if you'll give me the floor, I'll go over that.
Yeah, let's talk about that, Billy. Go ahead.
Okay, so we were, for the last 2 meetings, doing it a month at a time, but Governor Beshear issued an order that took the decision really at this point out of the board's purview, where that municipal utilities of all stripes, water, gas, everything, including electric, has been ordered at this point with no end date for us to continue to forbear on disconnecting for non-payment. So as I put in my narrative, that's a bit of a problem because we're regulated by TVA, not the Commonwealth. And TVA is a little concerned about ceding that authority to the Commonwealth. But at this point, they're being cooperative and allowing us to, in fact, they're recommending that we continue to forbear and hoping that the mass of all the utilities that are realizing real economic damage are become heavy enough that the governor will consider willingly turning that matter back over to these boards and TVA.
Yeah, I think that's around May the 8th. I'm looking at this little summary. I was trying to find the specific May 8th order or May 9th. Sometimes these summaries come out and then they tell, but it's referring to the Kentucky Public Service Commission, I know, which is different, that issued an order halting all disconnections, but then Governor Beshear also issued an order that continues to halt utility disconnects for non-payment and fees. And it says for utility services not regulated by the KPSC.
That's us. So, and I've got a fair amount of other information about that, Mr. Chairman, if you want me to just go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have been modulating the schedule of the team. We are just now beginning to return to semi-normal, but we're still not opening the lobby. We're trying to coordinate that with other utilities in town, the water company, Farmers Rural Electric, what have you, so that when we decide it's safe enough to reopen the lobbies, that we'll all do it at the same time, so there won't be any mixed messaging, coming from the utility community on that. And then we're still trying to move back a little bit as we find safe ways to do so, to trying to help people some with troubleshooting their broadband services inside the home. We had been not going in the home at all. We're still trying not to go in the home. But if something presents itself that can't seem to be solved any other way, and if our team feels safe by interviewing the residents to make sure, as much as anybody can make sure, that it doesn't sound like anybody has any symptoms or anything, or there's not a large number of people in the home, then we're trying to ease back into some of that. So we've since our last meeting, we've begun to return back toward normalcy a little bit.
Okay.
Here's the result so far, and I've got several other financial slides, but back in March, if you look on the far left of this deal, the gray line, the orange bar is what we thought was going to happen in these categories of people that pay their bill prior to the due date, people that pay during the grace period, people that only pay after disconnection, and account for that to be written off. And as you can see, our projections have been our experience has been better than our projections. The blue line shows you that 88% of the people before the crisis paid their bill before the due date. Now, about 80% of them are still doing that. So that's a happy error. The next group, people that pay during the grace period, you can see that we've got something about 18% of the people doing that. So if you add the first two together, you got 98% of the people that are paying their bill. We don't have any data on after disconnection because we're not disconnecting. But in general, this stuff is our group of customers are performing better through this crisis than we projected that they would do. And we're thrilled with that. You ready for me to move on to the next item?
Yeah. Yeah, let's go ahead and move on to number 4.
So, as we were talking earlier, this, when should we return to disconnects has been taken out of our hands by the governor. And I've got more graphics to talk about who is impacted, what our experience has been through this, and I'll go over that for you.
Bill, if you give me just 1 second, I was just going to tell you, Tag, that when I was reading, I do have a copy of that order, and it talks about, utility service, including but not limited to entities created under KRS Chapter 96. Of course, that's where the little TVA Act is under Chapter 96. So it's clearly talking about the EPB for sure.
So it includes those entities, what you're saying, right?
Right. It includes specifically including but not limited to entities created under KRS Chapter 96 and 279. I don't know what 279 is, but 96 is what includes the little TVA.
Okay. Well, thank goodness, or considering we've got, don't have a quorum tonight and some board members decided to stay home, then if we had to continue that program tonight, I'm sure, it could have put a little bit of a hardship on some people. So it's a good thing the governor stepped in on that.
Okay, so the graphic you see now is another month of our experience with the Community Relief Fund, where $4,500 a month is being pretty much exactly spent. They spent $4,200 of that in April, and in May, by the time it's over, we think it's going to be about 1,010. So y'all did that just in the nick of time. So because that money is all being used to help people who desperately need it through this pandemic.
And thank God that we were able to be able to do that.
Absolutely. We've updated, because we talked about the main people who are impacted by this are those that are unemployed. And in February, the baseline was 4.2% for Barron County. In March, it was up to nearly 6%. And while they haven't updated Barron County yet, Barron County has been running pretty much the same as the state of Kentucky. And look at that jump from March to April. Unemployment's up to 15.4% in Kentucky. And we have to assume it's perhaps going to be another increase in May. Now, there's good news though. How many people, this graphic answers the question of how many people are using the forbearance and not paying their bill and also enjoying not being disconnected for that. So the blue bar on the left is the number of people, and there's about 80 of them on the residential fixed rate that are not paying their bill and are not being cut off. The orange is about 180 folks on the variable residential rate who aren't paying. The gray is small commercials, GSA 1 fixed. There looks to be about 20 of those. The yellow is the GSA 1 variable, that much more people in that rate group, but there's only about 60 of them not paying. So a little bitty blue line there in the middle is probably one medium commercial customer that is not paying. The green represents 25 cable customers who aren't paying. Internet's about 10 internet customers. And then on the right, the second largest group are the people on prepay, what we call iPay. And they're on iPay with the fixed rate. So there's a shade over 110 of those. So add all of this stuff up, you got about 400 people or so, less than 10% of our residential customers and less than 5% of our total customers are, getting with, have an outstanding balance that would have been addressed were we not in this mode, now in this mode ordered by the state. This gives you a little bit of information about how big the ones that, how big the balances are. You can see the average is about $250, the one right in the middle. And the color bars in there tell you that the biggest group of customers that have an average of $250 are the residential on the variable rate, but it's made up of a little bit of everything in there. And there's some people over there that are less than $50 behind, and those ought to rectify themselves pretty easily when the forbearance ends. But there's also some over there on the right-hand side between $400 and $500 and greater than $500 that are worrisome. Notice the one greater than $500 includes that one medium commercial customer. Don't ask me who it is because I don't know, but medium commercial customers have big bills, so it's not surprising that it's greater than $500. And then since the pandemic began, here's how we are economically affected by forbearance. On the left is the normal level, which you all know is about $8,000 to $10,000 a month. So this is 2.5 months deep. The orange is what we were afraid it was going to be, $180,000. And the gray is what we're actually experiencing. About $61,000 is what our customers in total are behind through the duration of the forbearance that you all put in place. So I've talked to a lot of our peers, and a lot of them would be happy to swap with us. Our customers are actually been doing good, and that's a combination of people that just have a habit of taking care of their bills, plus the contributions that we're making to community relief is funneling through the agency and often coming back to us to reduce our total hit to that $61,000 level.
Right.
Okay, so this is an old slide where I just talked about the people that are unemployed, the benefits they're getting. Of course, there still are people that I know of and that we hear from over the phone in our lobby that are just not getting those unemployment benefits yet. And I hear the governor talking about that most days at 4 o'clock. That system, while it's well funded, is not still hitting on all cylinders as far as getting the money in people's bank accounts. This one's interesting. Okay, here's the red lines on the left are 2020, and this is volume of kilowatt hours sold. So you can see January was fairly normal, but it was a mild month. February was a little more than we normally sell in February, but then it falls off a cliff. And in May, our energy sales are 24% below average. Luckily, our economic well-being is not completely related to volume of energy sales. But if it were, we would really need to be scrambling on that problem. Here's the way it pans out for the different rate classes. In April, when we looked at this, residential sales were actually up some, but May was April was a really unusual, no, this is May, I'm sorry. May has been an unusually mild month until the last couple of days. So residential sales actually joined all the other rate classes in showing a considerable decline, 11% off residential sales, 30% less small commercial energy sales, 27% less medium, and 23% less large commercial sales. All wrapped up together, we're still thinking that our annualized loss of sales is going to be 15%. This month, our sales are off, everything added together, 24%. Unheard of, just absolutely never has happened in this business before. So I'm going to show you some projections out a year in advance, and based on these assumptions that I've updated since the last time you saw them, we're guessing that forbearance might end in the middle of July. We're guessing that you guys will want to give our customers something like 4 to 6 months to bring their accounts back to current. We're projecting that the energy sales loss will continue through fiscal year 2020, and that it won't come back until the middle of 2021, if then. We've reduced our projection on what the closure of LSC is going to cost us, and on the bankruptcy, we were showing over $70,000 last month, but now we've got it down to $51,000 now that all the meters have been read and all the relationship with TVA has been calculated, and we're working on with outside counsel to try to make a claim in bankruptcy court for this pre-petition $51,000 that they owe us. Later in this agenda, you're going to see me talk about our normal July 1 cable rate increase to make up for the increased cost of programming, but instead I'm going to recommend that we forbear on that as well. So that's incorporated into the financial projections. I'm still assuming that we'll do our third quarter rate review, a rate effectiveness review with a January 1 true up of our rates, and that is anticipated to take place on January 1. So all of those things put together, plus this wonderful life raft that we've gotten, which is the wholesale credit from TVA, which is going to largely offset the LSC loss. And when you put all that stuff together, you get a really cool looking graphic like this, where everything below zero are new costs that adversely affect our fiscal position. Everything above zero is enhancements to our fiscal position. So the orange is decrease in sales, which goes all the way across here. The gray is forbearance, and the reason that's negative is that right now those people aren't paying their bills, and we're $60,000 behind on that. It comes up to the positive side in July when we assume people start making payments on that. The blue that's all the way across there, that is the 3.1% credit from TVA, or what remains of it after we committed what you all have chosen to commit. And the blue down here on the bottom is the loss of LSD. And this is the bankruptcy. And then over here is just once they close the door and we're not getting that revenue. It ends in January because I'm planning on making a recommendation on truing up the rates that will become effective in January. And so that'll make that go away. So there we are. With all these terrible things that are happening, you can see that we're weathering it pretty well. And if you were going to summarize the fiscal operations of the Glasgow Electric Plant Board and the decisions that the board has made over the last few years to have a more resilient financial outlook, it's represented on this graphic right here, which starts with the unencumbered cash we had when the pandemic began, just over $900,000. And with all the things thrown at us, we think a year from now we'll be within hand grenade distance of where we started off. Something north of $800,000. So I think we all deserve to reach up in the sky and pat ourselves on the back, because we have accomplished something that a whole lot of businesses and a whole lot of peers are not going to be lucky enough to experience as this crisis goes on.
And without putting you on on the hot seat, Billy. What would that look like if we were just at 100% volumetric rate structure like we had before, just a flat rate structure? Is there any way to project that and do a compare and contrast?
I mean, we're talking about 15% loss of volumetric sales, and in May is 25%. So I think we would be burning, this slope right here would just continue until you get somewhere around the first of the year where you would begin to be in conflict with our bond covenants.
So you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars of lost cash by just making up the difference in the lost revenue we have from not selling the kilowatt hours like we were doing before, plus the forbearance, and then the loss of industry in town in the form of LSC leaving, right? So we're looking at, if we buy kilowatt hours, mark them up, and turn around and resell them for a profit, if we're not selling those anymore, it's going to have a much more profound impact, negative impact on our financial position, as opposed to the pass-through, TVA pass-through system that we have now, the rate structure we have in place now, correct?
I think as an accountant, Tag, you have every right to make that conclusion because it's correct.
Okay.
Now, on top of Tag's original question, what would it have looked like had we not had that 3.1% wholesale credit?
Well, take this graphic that I put back up and erase those so that you don't have that counterbalance of positive outcomes above the zero, and then everything is pretty much negative. So
right.
You would be adding up all of those bars across there and subtracting that from the $900,000 of unencumbered cash that we had, and it would have a chilling impact that would put us in danger of violating our bond covenant, and certainly put our bonds in danger of having a much lower rating for our money in the future.
So thank God for that 3.1% credit.
Absolutely. I mean, we just really, beginning in October, November, we stumbled into a lot of really positive outcomes that were exactly what we needed to have going for us as we came into this pandemic.
Now let's don't confuse things. I'm gonna congratulate the rest of the board on this, but we didn't stumble into anything. We fought tooth and nail to make this happen because we saw it coming.
That's right.
And now that it's here, the numbers are on the screen. Numbers don't lie. And thank goodness that we went ahead and signed this agreement. We got these incentive payments from TVA, and we moved away from the volumetric rate structure now, which has insulated us from potential losses much more profound than what we're potentially going to see over the next several months. So this wasn't done by accident. This was done with forethought. This was done with conviction, and this was done with good decision-making ability on a portion of our board, which saw this coming. And so anyway, I just want to make sure that that's out there, because there's a lot of misinformation about that's being passed around right now, especially with certain members of the media, and they want to try to paint a false narrative that these things don't matter, or that it's counterproductive to our cause for prosperity and growth within this community. And as you can see right here, we have done a good job of insulating ourselves from those problems, and it looks like we set ourselves up for additional insulation for the months to come, and giving us a little bit of a cash cushion, and in just the way that the rate structure has been set up, that allows us to move forward without having to worry about whether or not somebody like LSC or some other industry decides to leave. We do have some insulation and protecting ourselves in the operation of this utility. So I just wanted to have that say.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I don't disagree with any of that.
No, thank you.
Okay, we got a couple of things that normally I would ask you to the board to confirm what the programming committee has pretty much already done. We had 3 vendors of programming that had contracts that expired in the last month. One of them's AXS, Access TV, and HDNet. Those are like 501 and 502. That's close anyway. And we're beginning to see some really good news. By that I mean some of these programmers are realizing that this train of annual rate increases every year has to end somewhere. And for Access TV, it ended in them renewing the contract for 3 years for 62 cents a sub instead of 75 cents a sub. So we were thrilled with that, and the programming committee wanted the board to approve that, and we've actually already signed the contract. So in a future agenda, when we have a quorum, I will be asking for you to, just to get it in the minutes, that you were fine with us saving money on that. Then we've got Stingray Digital Music. If you've got a set-top box that goes, jumps from the digital channels and then up to the high definition channels, all the different music services, and there's 100 different music channels. There's a lot of music channels on there, and we have to pay for that. Presently, we're paying 18 cents a subscriber per month for that, and they signed a new contract that goes through 2023 that only has CPI increases in it. And lately, CPI has been year over year been pretty small, so that's basically a no new cost agreement there. And then Turner Networks has 9 different products that we buy from them. And this was a rather long and drawn out negotiation between the cooperative from whom we buy our programming and Turner. But it had a pretty good result. All these services, CNN, Headline, TBS, TNT, Cartoon, True TV, Turner Classic Movies, and Boomerang. We're all in this agreement. These numbers here represent what we paid under the old contract, and here's what the co-op settled on for the new contract, which is a cumulative 42.6 cents per month increase to go through March of 24. I'm sorry, it's 3 years through 23. So it's 42 cents in 21, which is a lot smaller than what we've been seeing in the past. But the out years, 22 and 23, only go up an additional 4 cents and 2 cents. So we have already accepted that agreement too, and hope that you all will ratify that whenever we can. But we're pretty happy with the way these went.
Billy, how much time do we have to ratify those agreements?
I don't think there's a time limit on it. It's just that I've already done it. So sometime I'm going to want to get it in the minutes that it was okay with you all.
Okay. I mean, we're not under any risk of losing cable channels because we can't get a quorum.
No, because I've already signed the agreement as if you all had given me permission. I used a little latitude there.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
The programming committee had already approved it, and historically, the board, the electric plant board, has never disagreed with the programming committee. So I felt like I was on pretty good footing there.
Well, those were the days. We don't know what the future holds, right?
Okay, well, this is some more good news, I think. Annually, in May, we talk about what we need to do to touch up the cable TV rates to make up for the programming costs that have increased. And we try to do it in May because we like to implement it on July the 1st, and you got to give people 30 days notice. But the staff's recommendation to you all is that we forbear on this, even though we, at the end of this year, we've got to renegotiate with WBKO and WNKY, and we're guessing they're going to ask for $3 per subscriber more. And we've already, the kind of Turner network increases that we have already agreed to with a bevy of other vendors resulted in $1.60 a month more programming costs than we've got cranked in the rates. So normally we would be asking for these two adjustments to the essential tier and to the network tier for July the 1st. But we have realized a lot more cable customers wanting to connect with us than our normal projections. March and April, we connected more broadband customers, both cable TV, internet, and internet only, than we had foreseen. And that has resulted in us having a little more wiggle room on absorbing these programming rate increases. So I guess it's in some way convenient that the board, since the board doesn't need to be able to act for us to keep on charging the same rate they've already approved. And that was.
Can I ask you something real quick, Billy? So I'm sure a lot of this cable subscription increase was probably because more people are at home, probably had grandkids, for people that were working, no longer had daycare, et cetera. This was, entertainment value. Do you anticipate those subscribers continuing on with their service, or do you anticipate some of that dropping back off to pre-pandemic levels?
I don't think our crystal ball is that good, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
We don't know what to say about that.
I mean, I'm assuming unless you polled the customer, I'm sure you don't know for sure, but there's a correlation between the timing of the pandemic and the timing of your increase in subscription.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So I guess common sense will tell you that once the pandemic starts easing off, people are not at home as much, we should anticipate some decrease in subscription.
That seems reasonable, yes, sir.
Okay. So we may have to address this at a later date, look at the cash position, determine if we can still absorb this. Is that right?
Just like the forbearance, in some ways, the team felt like as long as we're continuing to talk about forbearance on non-payment disconnects, it'd be pretty easy to get the message confused if we also talked about a cable rate increase. It just seemed like as long as we're forbearing, we might as well let it all come to an end at about the same time and try to get everything back to normal.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
That's a good move.
Yeah.
Then finally, just have our normal reports that I'll go through. I can tell you right here that the $10,000 that we requested from TVA already came through. The check has already been received at Community Relief, and I'm sure they are happily using the greater bandwidth that you all gave them on using that money to solve other things than electric utility disconnection. So,
well, let me tell you, I went and met with Stacy and delivered the check, and they are absolutely thrilled. She, kind of talked to me about what all they're going to do with it, what they can do with it, the need that's within this community, and it is really going to be a lifesaver for a lot of people. It's not a whole lot of money. I mean, $10,000 in the grand scheme of things when it comes to the need that's prevalent out there. It's just a drop in the bucket, but it's really going to be impactful on several families, and I heard that right from the horse's mouth. So. And Stacy, if you're listening, I'm not calling you a horse, but you know what I mean. It's, good stuff.
But all jokes aside, though, not only is that $10,000 going to be used to help people, but the $4,500 a month that we put there for electric bills freed up $4,500 a month of their other funds to help people through these trying times as well. So. Yeah, so I am beyond pleased that we were able to do that, and TVA contributed that $10,000 to Community Relief.
And Libby, this is kind of your pet project, and I get it, and I appreciate you pushing us to make this happen. So it's been good. It's made me feel good about what we do with all the negative stuff that's going around. It feels good. Whether we get, it's not about the publicity, it's not about anything else. It's about doing the right thing. And, I think if we're going to use public funds, there's not a better use, of those public funds to be able to make those, to really have that direct impact on the families that really need this during this time. So
Yeah.
that's good. I appreciate you pushing us, Libby. Thank you.
Well, we all have different day jobs. So, my day job, I see the need.
Yeah.
And, when I can call community relief and tell them I'm sending somebody over, or a person shows up and almost sending me a voucher, I'm like, okay, this is what we have contributed to. And yes, it does my heart good. So thank y'all.
Yeah.
I can echo all of that, and everybody on the team is thrilled to be able to help out in this way. And we know that without you all having the idea and the cooperative nature to do that, we wouldn't be able to dispense the good news that we're able to dispense on that. Okay, the last thing, I guess I'm just going to throw this out on the table and try not to inject any of my own opinions into this, but this may be a conversation for Ronnie and you, Mr. Chairman, but we have gotten to complaints under the Kentucky Open Meetings Law as a result of the quote unquote meeting that happened in the parking lot 2 or 3 weeks ago. One from Joe Trigg and one from Brennan Crane on behalf of WCLU. You've responded to both of those as the law requires. So I'll just give it to you and Ronnie to talk about. We've already responded and there's not a quorum, so you can't take any additional action. So I don't really know what else to do about those two things.
Well, and I guess, Ronnie, that's a big question I got for you. If we, there are remedies that are requested within both of these complaints, and those remedies are, fairly simple. It's just, that we won't. And can you pull it up, Billy? I can't remember exactly what it said, but I think I may have it in front of me.
I'll go to Brennan's. It's in word processing and it looks pretty good.
Yeah, so WCLU, Brennan Crane's complaint, asking that we nullify any action taken at the May 6th meeting, and that the board refrain from holding special call meetings during the coronavirus pandemic unless said meetings occur within the provisions of SB 150. So Senate Bill 150, I believe, Ronnie, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the one that the order that is, or the law now, I guess, that has precluded us from having any, meetings that aren't necessarily routine business unless they're, of course, on an emergency basis. Is that right?
I don't know that it does anything about requiring routine business. When you look at that Senate bill, Section 8 is the only one that really addresses where I found that it would apply to us. And that's really talking about the public records is Section 8A. Section 8B is the one that's referring to meetings, public agency meetings. And as far as mandatory, I don't know, some of that's mandatory the way some have looked at it, but it talks about 61-826. That's where you do the video teleconferencing. And I think the biggest change in subsection B is now it's not, that statute just says video teleconferencing. You couldn't do audio because the public's entitled to look at you. Okay, that's why you got to have. That's why I ask all the time about whether you've got everybody showing up on the screen there. But one thing it does do, it injects that you can also have now live audio or live video. And then, of course, you got to provide those subsections. All subsections after that are underneath that section. So it talks about, the notice of requirements. And then if you're going to, it says a public agency acting under this paragraph shall do these things, which is provide the notice that you guys have been providing already. Conduct the meeting by live video or live audio, but it's telling you to do it by live video if you have the technology. That's the preference. So EPB is already doing that. I think EPB's really been doing this for, Billy would know how long you've been putting it on television. And then provide the information to the public as to access. I don't see anything that really limits it to certain types of businesses. Certain type of business to be taken up. But I think it's just trying to satisfy the requirements of the open meetings by making sure the public have access to the information as the meeting is taking place. And they prefer that you have video.
Okay.
Somebody else may read something different, and then I'll be happy to take a look at that. But I didn't see anything in that. If there's another section in that Senate bill, which that's the only one I saw, the rest of them didn't seem to apply to the EPB. I didn't see any limitation on whatever business was to be conducted. You guys may differ, but if you do, I'll be happy to look at what you're talking about. But if there's a different section that you're aware of, which you think may apply, certainly I'll look at that.
Well, the only thing I'm looking at here is in Brennan's complaint. It says, refrain from holding special called meetings during the coronavirus pandemic unless said meetings must occur within provisions of SB 150. These matters, such as firing the superintendent and possibly dissolving a 20-year agreement at the will of the community and taxpayers, should be held in an open manner. And I think we all agree on that. And that was not done at that meeting that occurred on May the 6th, was not held in an open manner. And so, there is some relief here that I think should be granted to WCLU, members of the media, and the public at large, that if we're going to discuss these things, these need to be as open and accessible as possible from every member of the media and the public. And I think what I'm saying is it's kind of the fruit of the forbidden tree, that if you're unable to have open access to these meetings, and then we shouldn't be talking about these things. It will have such a profound impact on our community for decades to come. These things should be talked about openly and with access, so that people can redress the people that they have complaints with within their community, and members and leadership, members of leadership within our community. So I think maybe to me, it's kind of common sense that these things shouldn't be talked about during a time when the public can't, have their say, especially when the public can't even access the meeting itself because of, fears of being infected with a virus. So, however, we need to try to make sure that we respond to these things. I know we can't take any action, but I can just tell you right now that I think this is something that we should all consider, even the board members that aren't here tonight, that have kept us from achieving a quorum, should be listening to what we got going on here and take this into consideration when placing things on the agenda. So,
Mr. Chairman, if I might interrupt you for a minute, while y'all are all trying to be so nice and dance around the issue and all those nice terms, it's time for somebody to put it on the table like it is. So hopefully those other board members are watching this, and it is time for them, the mayor, anybody else who's in all this controversy, to stop the political grandstanding. It's time to stop. Now, I just had to say all this last year in May, but it's time for the BS to stop. And I'm running myself in at the moment, but we're in the middle of a global pandemic. People have lost their jobs. People don't know how they're going to pay their bills. So the political posturing and grandstanding needs to go to the wayside for a moment. Bottom line, we have much bigger fish to fry instead of somebody trying to slip in to get a W in their column. Now, real Libby Short is coming out now. So,
well, thank you, Libby. I agree with you. I just wasn't going to say it.
Hey, it's time for somebody to say it.
Hey, Tag, I do want to add on these complaints, just so that I hadn't talked to Libby or you either one about them, but after your response, it appeared to me that you pretty much agreed with the remedy they wanted, which was not to talk about anything but day-to-day business. I didn't quite understand, as I told y'all later, what Mr. Trigg's now appeal is about, because you agreed to their remedies.
I think I can address that, Ronnie. I think it was a timing issue between the time that the complaint was received and the time that the response was sent out. I think even Mr. Trigg will tell you that there was confusion on his end about when people received what and what they received. We got it out. We felt like within a 3 business day, requirement. So I think there was a little bit of confusion between the EPB, Mr. Trigg, and the AG's office about when that first complaint was actually received, by the chairman and the EPB. So, but I believe that's what that appeal is about. I've not spoken with Mr. Trigg about it, since the appeal has been filed. So I'll reach out to him and see if, if he's satisfied with whatever remedies we may take.
Yeah, I mean, my only suggestion would be if he's satisfied, I don't think Mr. Crane has filed anything. At least I've not received anything that I have forwarded to you guys. But if Mr. Trigg is satisfied, I mean, I would think that would be the end of it. The statute does provide, I'm sure y'all have looked at it, or some of you looked at it, that if you do agree to a remedy and then you later welch, I guess, on that deal, then, he still has the remedy to go to the Attorney General to seek their opinion about it. So,
well, the problem is that even though I have said that I agree with his remedy, the board has to vote on the remedy, and without a quorum, you can't vote on the remedy. So at this point, we've still not given them their remedy. They're free to do whatever they feel like they need to do in order to make sure that happens. But I don't see that happening if this, continuance of people shucking the responsibility continues when we can't get a quorum of the board. So
we can't vote on response to that. We can't even take care of day-to-day business because of the lack of a quorum. Like I said, the political grandstanding. It's time for people to take their responsibilities serious, get to that daggone table, Zoom whatever we own, and do what we're supposed to do. I'm fed up with it.
I think Mr. Trigg is certainly entitled to rely upon your, response until somebody does otherwise. I'm just, because he's just a third party out there, and he got a response from you statutorily like he's supposed to. So, the board, I guess, at some point would have to confirm or disagree with your response. But until then, I think Mr. Trigg can rely upon your response. And then if something happens different, he still will have that remedy available to him to take it to the Attorney General, in case he can ask whoever he wants to about it, but in case he's willing, if you talk to him, to say, okay, I'm not worried about the appeal right now. I'm just trying to.
Well, and that's all fine.
It's not necessary. It's not necessary, but if he thinks it is, he can go ahead with it. But you gave him his remedy, so I didn't understand that.
Well, I've given him the solution or agreed to his remedy, but as long as we keep having, these silly meetings in the middle of the drive-through at the EPB, this is going to continue to pop up. And until people start taking this seriously and to do things in accordance with the law, these things are going to continue to pop up. And Ronnie, I'm going to have to rely on you to make sure that they know what is in accordance with the law. So apparently there are several members of our community, the media included, that don't agree that they've done things in accordance with the law. Hence, we have a complaint. So from this point on, we need to ensure that we're doing things in accordance with the law, and that and that includes having a quorum so that we conduct business, so we can respond to actions that were taken by rogue board members that were not in accordance with the law. So that's where we stand today.
Yeah. And how ironic is it that we have an actual meeting to conduct business, but oh my gosh, we can show up for a silly looking setting in a drive-through, but we can't show up for a real meeting to take care of business. Right. Come on now.
So anyway, back to you.
Okay. I've just got a few more graphics to show you. This one is the one we usually look at from our analytics that shows left to right, January, February, March, April, May. You can see that kind of brown looking line on the right, that's 2020. And the higher, this is looking at our load factor. The higher the load factor, the less our net cost of energy from TBA is. And you'll see that in 2020, we've had record high load factors nearly every month, especially in March and April. We got 5 or 6 more days left in May. So you can see it right here. It looks like we may also set a record on it as well. So we're paying less than we've than our peers for energy from TVA because we've got a great load factor. And that's a good thing. That's a combination of our relationship with our customers and the rates, some good fortune with the weather, and then this not good fortune, this terrible pandemic that has really scaled back the operations, and a lot of customers only have a very high peak demand. So the result is excellent load factors so far in 2020. The fuel cost adjustment that becomes effective on June the 1st is a very small increase of 0.012 cents. TVA is not having to buy a lot of fuel because they're not having to make a lot of energy. So that is resulting in very good news on the fuel cost adjustment. Predicting peaks, though, in this extremely unusual economic situation has been a little more difficult, although in April, we got it on the right day, but we got it at the wrong hour. See that little lump right there occurred in the afternoon after what we thought was going to be a winter peak in the morning. It was a very small miss, but that's going to cost us about $9,000. And we called the first day in May today on the 26th. Highly unusual. We may have to call one or two more before the first, but we're optimistic that we're going to figure out a way to get the right day and the right hour so we don't have any extra expense for May. So how are we doing on the what I call the coincident peak demand ledger? And you can see that so far in 2020, we collected an extra $27,000 for coincident peak demand. Our actual cost is $15,000, so we're about $12,000 to the good. So far, it's only 5 months into the year. We got a lot of year left, but so far we're doing better than we did last year on collecting and predicting coincident peak demand. This is the slide I show every month. It just where people are on which rates they're choosing, and there's virtually no change on this. People have had a lot more things on their mind other than picking one rate or over the other. So this is really static. And that is all I've got for you this evening, unless you want to talk about anything under old or new business.
No, I mean, since there's not a meeting, there's no need to adjourn. Libby, you have anything else you'd like to say? I believe you and I have probably aired our grievance.
No, I mean, if we had people taking care of their responsibilities tonight, which is the adult thing to do, then I would like to have brought up the solar pilot project again, but we'll just save it till next month, and maybe people will be off of their little high horse and ready to take care of business once again. So we shall see.
Okay. Well, in that, I guess let's all go home.
I guess so. Well, it's nice seeing you gentlemen tonight.
Yeah.
Y'all for letting me go through the stuff, because I thought it was some stuff worth carrying out, whether you could take any action on it or not.
Do what? I'm sorry.
I thought we had some information worth airing out, even though you couldn't take any action on it. It's interesting.
On the solar?
Well, how the whole economic impact on the utility and the community.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Billy. I'm sorry. We're not trying to cut you off, hon. Go ahead. Talk.
Talking about anything new. I'm just thanking you for listening to what I already said.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Good deal.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Are you off the air now? Are you on the air?
We are on the air.
We are on the air.
Okay.
All right. All right. Well, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah. Sorry, Ron.
I said not officially adjourned. You already said that once, though.
Yeah, right. We're officially leaving the building or leaving the computer.
Peace out.
Okay.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you. See ya.